Hi everyone, my name is Rachel Hanna and I'm a registered dietitian and elite marathon runner, and I'm thrilled to be asked to be one of the speakers for the TCS Toronto Waterfront Marathon Women's Training Program. So my background in sports nutrition has allowed me to talk to a lot of athletes over the years, and it's been really great to help them, prepare for races. So anything from, usually the 5K distance up to the marathon. So I'd like to talk to you all about, training, what to do in terms of fueling, so carbohydrate intake, a little bit on hydration, and then mostly focus on your preparation for the marathon coming up, and then a couple things around female health nutrition too. So when we look at in this cycle of training, so say you're in, a 12-week training block and you've got, right now as I'm filming this video, about 6 weeks to go. I'm also racing the marathon, so I'm really happy that I get to be taking part with you all. I think it's great to participate in these races. I've done a lot of the Canada Running Series races, and they've really allowed me to continue racing at this level. So if we look at, right now, what you want to focus in on is, let's start with carbohydrate intake during your training run. So it's really important that you start to practice and fuel your stomach, and I like the term, get used to it. So you're getting used to training your gut to tolerate carbohydrates on your long runs. So one of the things that sometimes people can run into issues with is gut issues when they're during the race, because if you haven't practiced with it, it can be very challenging to tolerate higher amounts of carbs. So the carb range should depend on the pace that you're running. So when I work individually one-on-one with people, we go over some, pace goal targets, carb ranges. So the range is anywhere from, I would say, about 40 to 60 grams of carbs an hour on average. So you want to start with what you've practiced with. So say you've only taken, 20 grams an hour, like you want to work up. So the next run, do 30 and then do 40. So you want to gradually build your stomach up to get used to that. But I'd say anywhere in that range, usually, 50 to 60. So you're looking at what are you getting from, your sports drink and then gels. You also want to practice with what is on the course. So if we're looking at, the course hydration, Noon's going to be on the course. And then if you're looking at gels, you want to basically carry with you what you need. So you kind of work backwards from that. Noon's not a very high carb drink, so you're going to mostly rely on your gels for fueling. So for most people, that's going to work out to roughly about 2 gels an hour, but it just depends on the carb content. So say, for example, you're using a Morton gel, then that would be 25 grams. Some have 20. So just look at the packaging to figure that out. And then you want to start to practice with that. So that's really going to help your long run quality, because you're going to get better workouts in. Your muscles are at less risk for injury when you're fueling properly. And also look at your recovery too. So if you're in a good mood the rest of the day, that's a good sign that you took in enough carbs. And if you're really tired and you take days to recover, it means you were too low. So that'd be my number one tip, is just make sure you're taking in enough carbs, some fluids too. So we'll talk about that next on guidelines for that. For fluid during marathons, or if you're doing the half, approximately anywhere from, I would say, 400 to 600 mils an hour would be an average amount. If you ever want to, try to calculate your sweat rate, I work with people one-on-one to figure out, how much approximately they're losing, but that's a general range that you can aim for, as long as it's not too hot or humid. That's usually a pretty safe target. And then go by thirst as well. It's really important to, have a plan, but also listen to our bodies. So I always say, have a plan, but don't stick to the plan at all costs. Meaning if you're, you can't stick to that carb amount during the race, then adjust based on tolerance. So as I talked about in the last video, get that carb intake up, get some fluids, some electrolytes to your products. Most people are going to be perfectly fine with the sodium that's already in the sports products. Most people don't need to add extra unless they have issues with cramping, or they really lose a lot of sodium through their sweat, and they've seen that. So for the most part, those products are great. So we covered the, the carb amount during, fluids. After runs, recovery is really important. So just make sure you're getting enough carbohydrates and protein. The general recommendation is to have, a meal or a snack within about 45 minutes after a harder training session. So that's, an hour or more. And generally a 3-to-1 carb to protein ratio. So that means for every 3 grams of carbs, you're having 1 gram of protein. So a lot of people tend to get a lot of protein after, but sometimes don't have enough carbs. So try to make sure it's a healthy meal. Most meals are pretty high in that, but if you're having more like snack-based stuff, just make sure that snack has enough adequate carbs just for recovery. So that helps to replenish some of the glycogen or the stored carbs that you lost, helps repair your muscles with the protein. Carbs help to prevent muscle protein breakdown, so they help with growth too. One consideration for females in particular is just around fasted training. So it can be hard for women to do fasted training. I typically don't recommend it unless it's a super, short run, really early in the morning. It's just not practical to eat anything before, say it's, 20 to 30 minutes, but anything above that, I'd make sure you have some carbs. Some people do well with, a piece of fruit, a banana, dried fruit, a gel, something like that, but you want to make sure you raise your blood sugar levels. That's going to help on any, longer run, workout. And some people just really don't do well with fasted training. So by having carbs, it's going to help, balance estrogen levels and hormones. So I would encourage to eat if you're an early morning runner. So those are some things to look at. When I work with people one-on-one, I do offer some tracking. So I use an app called RX Food that uses AI to figure out what's in your food. And so that always helps to figure out, okay, how much carbs am I having? Because then we can be a bit more specific with goals. So if you do some tracking, you can also do that on your own. But it is really helpful to look at that just to make sure you're eating enough in general, and make sure you're listening to your body. So if you're feeling, really tired, take some extra recovery days, but always make sure it's not, that you're going too low in carbs. Always look at that number, because I find sometimes females don't have enough carbohydrates altogether. So I hope those tips helped. Reach out to me if you have any further questions, rachelhannahRD@gmail.com, or you can follow me on Instagram and send me a message there, and my booking link is there as well. Good luck and enjoy the training process.